Memorizing more chord voicings doesn't help you actually play songs. The problem isn't the chords themselves, it's that you don't know how to connect them and turn them into music. So in this video I'm going to show you 3 things: how chords are built from the scale and how that makes them fit together in a song, and why some chords behave differently, so that every chord that you see makes sense and you know what to do with it. If you're struggling to remember chord shapes, playing one chord and then guessing how to play the next chord, then this approach makes it easy to play chords and connect them through the song so that the harmony just flows naturally. And once these 3 things connect, learning songs gets a lot quicker, because it's no longer about memorizing a long row of mysterious chord symbols. Most guitarists treat every chord symbol as a separate thing to memorize. So when you see G7 with a 13 on a chart, that's one shape. G7 with a 9, it's another shape, and G7 9 13 is something else entirely. And every time you see a new symbol, it feels like you're starting from scratch, but here's how that actually works. These aren't 3 different chords, they're the same chord family. In this case, they're all G7 in C major. And once you see them that way, you stop guessing how to play them and you can put them to use in songs. Basic G7, G7 with a 9, G7 with a 13, and of course G7 with a 9 and a 13. So these are all essentially the same thing, and if you can play one, you can probably also play one of the other ones. It doesn't really matter, they're the same chord. Here's how to think about it. A chord isn't a random stack of intervals, it comes from a scale, and the easiest way to think of the notes available to you is to stack thirds up from the root within that scale. So for G7 in C major, here's your C major scale. You start on G, and then you stack every other note, so you have G, B, D, and F. That's your basic G7, root, major third, 5 and flat 7. But if you keep stacking, then you get A, C, and E. So now you've got a 9, an 11, and a 13 sitting right there in the scale as the top part of the chord. Now the 11, the C, creates sort of a dissonant interval with the third, the B. So you leave that out of the chord most of the time, but everything else is available. So we have the G7, then we can add a 9, we can add a 13, or we can add both 9 and 13. Same family, same scale, same chord. And now you can use all of these voicings and mix them up when you're playing to get more interesting movement and sound in your comping. This means that instead of memorizing 3 separate shapes, you think one thing: G7 in C major. And these are all just different variations of using those same notes together. As long as you know it's G7 in C major, the extensions are up to you and you just read G7. Now, if you want to work through these examples yourself, I made a PDF with all the chords and extensions laid out for you. There's a link in the description. So now you can see what notes are in the chords and which variations you can use, but knowing how a chord is built is only a part of it, because the next thing that makes chords easy to use in a song is understanding how the different chords relate to each other. And that's where diatonic chords are really great. When most guitarists look at the sheet music of a song, the chords look like a random list of symbols with no connection to each other. D minor 7, then F minor 6, then E minor 7. 3 different things to figure out one after the other. And that's exactly why playing through a song feels like guesswork. But those chords aren't random, they're from the same family. And when you build a chord on every note of the C major scale by stacking thirds, you get 7 chords that all belong together. C, E, G, B, that's C major 7. Then D, F, A, C, that's D minor 7. E, G, B, D, E minor 7. F, A, C, E, that's an F major 7. G, B, D, F, that's your G7, and then we have A, C, E, G, that's A minor 7, and B, D, F, A, that's a B half diminished. And now look at a chart for the song Just Squeeze Me. So most of those chord symbols are right there in the diatonic chords. And once you see that, the chart stops looking like a list of separate problems and start looking like one connected scale. So here's how to make that practical. In C major, you have 2 sets of shell voicings, one with the root on the A string and one with the root on the E string. That's it. 2 exercises that give you the harmony of the entire scale. Root on the A string, And then you have the same set of chords, but with the lowest note on the E string. And here I'm starting on the F, the fourth note in C major. And this is also how you start to recognize patterns like the 2-5-1. D minor 7, so the second chord in the scale, moving to a G7, fifth chord in the scale, and then that's resolving to the C major 7, the first chord in the scale. So once you can see the diatonic chords, that pattern really jumps out at you every time. Now check out what happens when you play through the first part of Fly Me to the Moon using just these two sets of chords. So let's start with this A minor 7, rooted on the 5th string. Now I need a D minor 7 next, there's a D here, and we can just play that minor 7 that's in the row. Then we have this, and also these two really just flow together. And the same thing happens once I want to move to the D minor 7, so to the G7, D minor 7 to G7, and we want to move to C7, then I'm going down to this one. And notice how I'm going from the 6th string to the 5th string, and then from the 5th string to the 6th string all the time. Now here we have the C major 7, and then the F major 7 is right next to it or right under it here. And that way you can go through the song easily. 2 exercises, 1 scale, and you can move through most songs without stopping to figure out a single shape. Now if you want to go deeper on this, adding rhythm, melody and extensions to these shell voicings, my Jazz Chord Craftsmanship course walks you through exactly that process. There's a link in the description. Now you have the diatonic chords covered, but not every chord in a jazz song comes from the scale. And the most common one that doesn't is actually pretty easy to figure out once you know what to look for. Let me show you. You're playing through a song in C major. The diatonic chords are all making sense, but then you hit an A7 before D minor 7. So that's not a diatonic chord. So what do you do with it? And suddenly the system feels like it has a hole in it, but it doesn't. There are just 2 dominant sounds that you need to know, and between them they will cover every dominant chord you'll ever see in a song. Now you already know the first one. In C major, G7 is the dominant, and as you saw earlier, stacking thirds gives you a 9 and a 13th as your available extensions. But there's also a minor dominant. So the second one comes from the minor key, and in this case C minor. The dominant is still G7, but now the scale is C harmonic minor. So if you stack thirds from G in this scale, so first you just get the G7, and then of course you can go up to get the extensions as well. So you get an A flat, a C, and an E flat. Now the C, again, we just leave that out. That's the 11. It doesn't really sound good, but you have the A flat, which is flat 9, and you have the E flat, which is a flat 13. Same chord, but different extensions. So you have 2 dominant sounds. Major dominant, which is with a 9 and a 13, and then the minor dominant with a flat 9 and a flat 13. That's it. It's actually pretty simple. Now here's where it gets powerful. The pull that a dominant has toward the tonic chord, so G7 resolving to C, that same pull works for any chord in the key. And these are called secondary dominants, and there are simply just 5 chords for all the other chords in the scale that we can just put in there. And that A7 resolving to D minor was one of them. And once you know the 2 dominant sounds, figuring out which one to use is really simple. Look at where the chord is going. So let's walk through all of me to give you an idea about how this works on a real song. Let's start with the A7. It's resolving to a D minor 7. So D minor 7 is a minor chord. That means that this is a minor sound for the dominant. We have a flat 9 and a flat 13. You can see the flat 9 appearing in the melody as well. Now next we have a D7. Now the D7, it's resolving to a G7. So even though there is like a D minor 7 in between, but G7 is a major chord, so that means there's a major dominant, and it has a 9 and a 13. And again, also the 13 appears in the melody. 2 dominant sounds, that's all you need to handle most of the chord progressions you'll come across in jazz. Now you have the 3 things, so how chords are built, how they connect in a key, and how to handle dominants that aren't in the scale. Now the last piece is how to put all of that together so that you can actually use it when you sit down with a song. And that's what chunks are all about. Even after everything you just learned, sitting down with a full chord chart can still feel kind of overwhelming because you read it symbol by symbol. So C major 7, B half diminished, E7, A minor 7, G minor 7, C7, F major 7. It looks like a long random row of unrelated things to memorize. And that's exactly where a lot of guitarists get stuck, but that's not how you read it. You group them together. And here's the last piece, that makes that possible. Secondary dominants can also have a 2 chord in front of them, just like the 2-5-1 that you already know as the cadence for the 1 chord in the scale. So in C major, the secondary 2-5 to A minor looks like this: B half diminished, E7 to A minor 7. And the secondary 2-5 to F major 7, a major chord, is G minor 7 to C7 to F major 7. Let me show you how you can put this to use on a real song. I'll use the first half of There Will Never Be Another You. Now, the first 2 bars are just C major 7, so that's just the 1 chord, and that's 1 chunk. Then you see B half diminished to E7 going to A minor 7. That's a secondary 2-5 to 6, just 1 chunk, not 3 different chords. Now this is followed by G minor 7 to C7 going to an F major 7. So again, just a secondary 2-5, this time going to the 4th degree F major 7. From the F major 7 we get F major 7 to B flat 7 to C major 7. Now this B flat 7 is not behaving like a dominant, so I'm just going to skip that for now. Then we have C minor and A minor. Those are both diatonic chords. And then the next section we get is D7 and then A minor to D7. That's all 5 of 5. It's all just secondary dominant and a 2-5, secondary 2-5 to the G7. So that's a chunk. And then we get just a 2-5 to get us back to the C major chord in the second half. So that's D minor 7 to G7. This is how you actually learn a song, not by spelling out every chord symbol one at a time, but by recognizing the groups and understanding how they fit together and how they move. Once you can do that, the whole chart makes sense before you played a single note. Now remember that if you want a PDF of the examples that I covered so that you can go over them at your own pace, there's a link in the description. So now you have the 3 things that make jazz chords make sense. You can look at a chord symbol and know where it comes from, group the chords in a song into chunks instead of spelling them out one by one, and know exactly what extensions are available for each chord. So playing through a song is no longer about memorizing a random row of mysterious symbols. But diatonic chords and secondary dominants are just the foundation. This next video goes further with more common chunks and the kind of progressions that give jazz its color and those small surprises that sound so beautiful. Like that B flat 7 that we skipped in There'll Never Be Another You. The ones that really make you stop and think, how did that work? Check it out, learn jazz, make music.